The massive floods in Texas have left dozens of people dead. There are now questions as well as to whether Trump's cuts to the National Weather Service contributed to those deaths. Joining us now to discuss this and more is Lisa Daftari, our U.S. correspondent from the Foreign Desk in Los Angeles. Lisa, yeah, just, man, horrific news there, of course, of these floods, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important to separate the politics and the media from what actually took place and to
Yeah.
not diminish the senseless loss of life for so many, including so many young children who had gone to sleepaway camp and to,
Yeah.
just as a mother, it's just something that is so difficult to even comprehend that that could happen. Yes, so there's major efforts made to save more lives, but unfortunately the size of this, the actual just brutality of this, and how devastating Mother Nature and how the lack of compassion of Mother Nature could be at times. That's on one end, and on the other, we have accusations on both sides. One saying that these are the cuts that were made that we're not able to provide more funding and more help, and on the other hand, the Department of Homeland Security accusing the media as well as conspiracy theorists from spreading these ideas that that this is being misrepresented in some way. So obviously there's a lot of finger pointing, and I even saw some conspiracy theorists say that this was fabricated storms, that it was a clear day in Texas and all of a sudden you see these storms coming out. So these storms fabricated in order to make Trump look bad. So again, I think it's too soon to even have these conversations. We should really be focusing on supporting the families of those who lost their loved ones in this devastating storm.
Yeah. Do they have the equipment and personnel that they need to, I'm assuming they do, to search for survivors and that sort of thing?
It appears that way. I mean, there's stories of so many heroes in this situation. One man from New Jersey who went out there and was able to save 200 people. And then you have others that it was just too late to get to, including those young women who died from the camp.
Yeah, because there's still kids missing. I mean, you pray and hope that somehow there's a child or two or three, stuck in a tree somewhere, and no one has been able to hear their cries yet. It would be awesome if we could get some news
Yeah,
like
and I think,
that.
yeah,
You
you make a
know,
good point, right?
yeah,
Because there are so many people still missing. We don't know if
yeah.
that death toll will rise or if we will hear stories of hope and of just miracles that
Hmm.
these people were able to hang
Yeah,
on.
and there were people who did apparently give their lives trying to save people. I think the camp director, actually died while trying to save kids, right?
Yeah, I mean, his name and picture are being circulated widely throughout the internet and on news channels as really a heroic figure. He bought this camp in the 70s and really dedicated his life and that of his family is really to creating this summer camp for young women. And so many people coming out with such amazing stories about their experiences at this camp, even counselors coming out and speaking about this man's character and how he really gave his life to save some of those young women in this storm. So really, so many stories and really accounts of how harrowing this really was. And when you read about this man really giving up his life, it's just so, poetic in the scheme of him buying this camp, giving so many women, such young women, and now women looking back on their experiences, so many wonderful experiences over the various summers, and then now having to give his life in order to save some of those young.
Yeah, it causes us all to hit pause in our busy lives to, figure out, okay, what's actually important, what matters. Yeah. Well, Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are meeting today. What is their focus going to be here? I mean, I'm assuming this ties in with the Gaza war and ceasefire and so forth.
Yeah, this is definitely shifting gears into what will happen next and looking at the next chapters of this war. Look, we are hopefully seeing a fizzling out of this war with Israel feeling confident that it has removed the immediate existential threat coming from the Iran regime and its proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. The Houthis, even more recently in the last 24 hours, Israel having to launch another campaign against them as they are lobbing missiles into Israel. I mean, they will not give up. And I think something that they, if you just go scour different media sources, you're seeing so many different headlines about, Israel continuing this war, and they're not really talking about what's going on. If Israel if the proxies would stop, you would not see Israel launching any more campaigns. But it's that these missiles continue to come from the different proxies, and mainly coming from Hamas and the Houthis at this point. Hezbollah obviously quieting down, facing major defeat by Israel, and of course Iran's regime. We saw a huge campaign, the United States joining that campaign as well. So now today we have Bibi Netanyahu coming to Washington, D.C., meeting with President Trump, talking about the next phases of this war, who will be in charge of Gaza, what will a ceasefire slash truce look like going forward, and what will be enough for Israel in terms of feeling safe and feeling that that existential threat is off the table. So it's going to be a very important conversation, one that is more upbeat than we have seen in previous months, because I do think that both the United States and Israel feel more confident about having gone into Iranian territory to handle the nuclear and military threats for now, and now looking again to the next chapter and what will come next.
Right. Okay. Well, Trump on a different front here on the tariff issues, threatening extra 10% tariffs, I think it is, on BRICS countries, so Brazil, Russia, India, China. They're meeting in Brazil today. So any news on that?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you see the United States in a position of strength, right? So we have the tariffs, we have, Trump in office who has increased sanctions on our adversaries. The stance of the White House is deterrence all the way, America first. And we have sanctions on China, we have sanctions on Iran's regime, you have sanctions on North Korea, and the list goes on. Then you have, this desire to create parallel systems to rival the dollar and to rival, the central banks. Why? Because the economic consequences our adversaries will find ways to work around them. So now you do have that threat. And as BRICS kicks off today, as we know, these are countries that are very much second tier, but very strong and emerging economies. They may want to, again, rival the United States and say, we don't want to be the next China, and we don't want to be the next Iran's regime. We don't want to be on the out. So let's create our own way so that we are basically sanction proof, and that we don't have to be at the mercy of a Donald Trump-led United States. And that is why you see Donald Trump threatening to add tariffs onto countries that dare play like that. And I think he's making the message loud and clear. Go into BRICS, sure, but don't think about doing X, Y, and Z, because there will be consequences.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of these meetings here for sure. Elon Musk, he's always an interesting character. He's starting a new political party to challenge both the Democrats and Republicans. So is that going anywhere? I mean, it reminds me, of course, of another billionaire, Ross Perot, since passed on. But yeah, well, where does this head? Where does this go?
Yeah, so this he threatens to start another party that represents what he says are the 80% of normal politically central Americans. To which Donald Trump replied, "That's just ridiculous." And I think it's more of his personal opinion that the big beautiful bill was not something that will benefit most Americans. I think it certainly doesn't benefit his company. And we saw Tesla stocks go down as of this morning with this threat of starting a new political party. I think most Tesla shareholders would want him to just step out of the political limelight, not really, have this roller coaster, situation with their stocks because of his political outbursts. Look, he did a lot of good work for the administration. I think most Americans who are fair-minded and fair-handed could say that, he did save Americans a lot of money. He was a huge, advocate, a whistleblower of sorts to kind of flag down all of the wasteful spending. But he just didn't see eye to eye with President Trump on this big, beautiful bill, and that's where they parted ways. And since it's been very, very personal and very, very much on the global stage. So that's really not a good combination when you have two rich, powerful men duking it out like this and making threats of starting new political parties. It's just that actually the Republican Party will be the party to suffer if he does split up that vote.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering, will he get any traction? I mean, I guess it's probably a bit early to tell.
Too early, but yeah, but he has to understand the MAGA movement is a huge popular movement. People stood behind Elon because they stood behind Trump. They didn't come to Trump because of Elon. Very few. I don't think that's a huge draw. Although, many people do support him. Although, in Los Angeles, when you drive around, you see the Teslas with the bumper stickers that say, I bought this before Elon was Elon up his mouth. So, I think you have those people too, but we're talking about Los Angeles, which is a very, very Democrat city. So anyway, I don't know how much traction he will get, but I think it would behoove everyone if he patched things up, at least publicly, with Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think so. And again, like I say, where's he going to get who would suffer the most? Probably the Republican Party rather than the Democrats would be my guess as well. All right. Well, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, he's appeared in public, I guess, for the first time since the start of this conflict with Israel. So I guess, well, a couple things, I mean, is he really cracking down on public resistance? That's what I'm hearing in Iran, a lot of stuff going on there. And is it possible that the U.S. and Israel could still take him out? Would that be a possibility here?
Yeah, it's a mystery why they didn't to begin with, only because if their real bottom line goal, and I know they talk about their goal being 0% enrichment and leaving no residual and taking out as much of their nuclear and military facilities as possible. But if you really want to weaken the head of the snake, you really go to the actual literal head of the snake, and that would be Khamenei, who has been the main, both in terms of symbolic figure and, in terms of having the final word and the final say on all of the horrific extremist decrees, all the Iranian innocent people who lost their lives because of the human rights abuses and the political prisoners, and then you move outside of Iran and all the proxies that they created that have killed so many innocent people, including Americans, I'm sure Canadians and others, as they continue their proxy wars throughout the world, as they beef up their assets in Latin America to come up to our continent. These are all factors, and he's the one responsible for them. So it is a mystery as to why they didn't take him out. The fact that he had not shown himself publicly since the 12-day war was a source of many, many conspiracies, whether he died in private, meaning he either had a heart attack or some sort of shock. He was just weak. He is very old. He is well into his 80s. And then you have the fact that he came out to show himself, which is always this flex of the regime to say, no, we're well and will continue kicking. But the main point, which you alluded to, is the crackdown on the Iranian people. And I just want to mention for a lot of people that the main fear that Khamenei and this regime has is not being fearful of the United States or of any action by Israel militarily, but it is truly of their Achilles heel is the Iranian people, fearful that they would come out and launch a grassroots movement to topple them. So any sort of window that they see that the Iranian people may come out, they may start a movement, they may feel confident to do so, there are major crackdowns, and that's unfortunately what we're witnessing in the aftermath of the 12-day war.
Yeah. Encourage people to pray for the people of Iran. Those are the ones that are suffering the most, it seems. All right, out of time here. Thanks, Lisa, as always, for sharing with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.